Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and today I want to talk to you guys a bit about Sanctum of Domination and the Warlock, I guess, spec breakdown for each boss. I put a video out similar to this about a month and a half ago, give or take, but in that time frame, things have changed a little bit. Sims have come out, Legendaries have changed, talents have become better, some have become a little worse. So I wanted to review them all on a case-by-case basis today, talking about AF, Demo, Destro for each boss, give a talent breakdown, and then really just a brief general breakdown of the boss as well. Now, in addition to that, if you'd like to have a, I guess, like a general reference point outside this video, my new website, kalamazi.gg, is indeed now live, giving me a full breakdown of each boss, talents, legendaries, recommended specs, and a breakdown as well as raid testing if you'd also like to go there. Now, with all that being said, I do also indeed stream my guild's progression. My guild raids Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday from 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. We will be doing heroic on Wednesday this week, and then going into mythic next Wednesday whenever the raid actually opens. Now, on top of that, I am casting the complexity limit race to world first from Texas this time around, so I will indeed be doing my best to stream all of my guild's prog from the site. However, things might be a little spotty, give or take, in the meantime. I will, or I guess I should, have boss kills going up while I'm out there. Any weak wars, profiles, or add-ons you see here can grab for free off my Twitch as well. If you want to swing by, feel free to do so. I want to give a huge shout out to all my patrons. Thank you again so much for the support, guys. I really truly do appreciate it. Also, we're getting close to 50,000 subs on YouTube, which is actually insane. So if you guys aren't subbed to the channel, maybe contemplate potentially, if you like, subbing to it. There's nothing I gain from hitting 50k, but it's been a personal goal for a long time. Now that we're so incredibly close, I'm really excited. Oh, and I also forgot to mention, as far as legendaries go for each boss, destruction, we're going to assume we're playing cinders on basically every boss. If there's potential for another one, I'll mention it. The same for demonology, playing Wilfrids on basically every boss. Affliction can play malefic wrath if it is a single target boss, like Tarragrue, like Guardian, the first ones. It does indeed sim a bit higher, but it has a terrible playstyle. Outside of that, you're probably just playing synergy on any fight that has 2+ targets as far as affliction is concerned. Now, let's get into the video. The Tarragrue was the first boss you're going to encounter and is just a pure single target DPS race. You'll gather random anima powers progressing through the trash before you pull the Tarragrue, which can sometimes buff your damage, allow you to spread your damage around in the raid, soak some immunities, maybe buff another player's damage, or give you a large health increase. Now, as far as recommended specs on this fight go, I feel if you're trying to min-max single target, Demonology is going to be the play here, playing the normal build of Demonic Strength, Calling, Vile Fiend, Grimoire, and Demonic Consumption. Keep in mind, you can play Dreadlash over Demonic Strength, but if you're doing that, you want to play the Carnivorous Stalker's Conduit over Fel Commando. If you're playing Affliction, single target, Drain Soul, Siphon Life, Singularity, Haunt, Dark Soul Misery, this is one of the few fights that you can play Malefic Wrath on if you want to, but the problem is you have to make Malefic Wrath, which is very narrow and annoying to play with. If you don't want to do that, playing Demonic Synergy is just fine. It is not a very large DPS loss over Malefic Wrath in single target. If you're looking at playing Destruction, the build of either Flashover or Eradication in the first row, I'm leaning a bit more towards Eradication, followed by Entropy, Cataclysm, Roaring Blaze for consistency over Reign of Chaos, and then Dark Soul Instability. Eradication has been buffed in 9.1. It now affects your pet damage, meaning your Infernal, your Imp, your pet of choice, Infernal melee damage, Immolation Aura, all of that, which has made it pull ahead of Flashover by a substantial bit, even when playing the Cinders Legendary. Regardless of what you play, the Tarragrue is not a very challenging boss, but for the first boss in the raid, it's actually a really fun boss, and my sleeper pick for one of the most exciting ones in Sanctum of Domination. The second boss you will encounter in Sanctum is Eye of the Jailer, and this is a sort of single target, but it's really 2 targets. You're going to have the Eye here being your main target, but there's going to be an angel ad that spawns every so often that you pull down using the change you'll see in a minute here. Now, on top of that, the boss will indeed go into an intermission, which has 2 mini boss ads spawn. So my recommended spec here, which is sort of spoilers ahead for a lot of the raid, is going to be Destruction, playing either Flashover or Eradication in the first row here, Entropy, Cataclysm, Roaring Blaze, and Dark Soul Instability. A very similar extent to the single target fights in this raid, Eradication has been buffed, 2 targets, Havoc window, your bolts deal more damage. Eradication does indeed sim better in 2 target than Flashover does. Now, you very well might end up getting into a scenario where you want to play Flashover due to simplicity or just not enjoying Eradication, but my initial plan is to probably start with Eradication here and see where it goes, but it's worth keeping an eye on regardless. If you're playing Affliction, the build of Drain Soul, Siphon Life, personally I feel Singularity, Haunt, and Dark Soul Misery is what I would recommend. It is noted that you can indeed play Shadow's Embrace over Haunt if you want to try and juggle stacks of Shadow's Embrace on 2 targets and potentially ride an Ag in your AC. I personally feel, though, with just how this fight is structured, that the single target build is going to be where you want to be. You can still juggle 3 dots without really any issues as far as this fight is concerned. If you're playing Demonology, pure single target build. Demonic Strength, Demonic Calling, Vile Fiend, Grimoire Felguard, and Demonic Consumption is my choice here overall. Eye of the Jailer is not a very challenging fight, but it was buffed substantially this week in PTR hotfixes, so while this fight was pretty trivial in raid testing, it could be a serious step up when the raid actually goes live. The 9 is the third fight you're going to encounter inside Sanctum of Domination, and my overall best spec here, I feel, is going to be right off the bat Destruction, Flashover Eradication, Reverse Entropy, Cataclysm, Roaring Blaze, and Dark Soul Instability. You'll see in the opener here, this is a 2-target fight with a third ad spawning here, and on transition it can become a 4-target fight, but once you hit that phase 2 transition, it's a pure patchwork single target fight with no ad spawning. Now Destruction is better at 2-target, Destruction is very good at 2-target cleave. It's fine at single target, not as good as Demonology, but the 2-target cleave that Destro brings in the first part of this fight is extremely relevant. The ability to burst the ad down quickly, the just insane havoc value you get with Roaring Blaze, Dark Soul, all your CDs like synced up, and if you get a power infusion, you're actually zooming. Now, if you were looking at playing a second spec here, I think Affliction is quite possibly the second best choice. Keep in mind, AF dots have been buffed substantially in 9.1. Rapture's been nerfed, that's happened, but this is sort of phase 1 is probably the closest you're going to get to a council fight as far as Sanctum is concerned. Drain Soul, either Writhe in Agony or Siphon Life here. I'm probably going to lean more towards Siphon Life due to the final phase being pure single target, but keep in mind Agony was buffed, so Writhe in Agony was buffed, and in a similar extent, Rapture's actual damage was nerfed, which means Siphon Life is Writhe in Agony is closer to Siphon Life in pure single target. It is not better than Siphon Life though, but if you're trying to min-max both phases, Writhe could be an option here. I feel Siphon Life's going to be better though. Playing Phantom Singularity, Shadow's Embrace, and Dark Soul Misery. You can play Haunt if you want, but if you're playing Drain Soul, you also have the option of stacking Shadow's Embrace on 2 targets here in the first phase. Keep in mind, the duration of Shadow's Embrace is now 16 seconds and not 12 like it was in 9.0, so it's a bit easier to juggle. If you want to play Demonology, you can play the single target build, Demonic Strength, Demonic Calling, Vile Fiend, Grimoire Felguard, and Demonic Consumption. It might actually be a little better to lean towards Dreadlatch potentially with Carnivorous Stalkers based on phase 1 cleave, but phase 2, depending on kill times, I think the single target build is just going to end up being your best bet on the 9. Remnant of Ner'zhul is the 4th boss you'll encounter in the raid, and this boss is actually it's a single target-esque boss in disguise. There's going to be orbs that spawn, which the tank needs to hit with the frontal. The boss does to have them take a large amount of increased damage and actually make them targetable. They do indeed need to be thrown off the edge to remove like the actual pulsing damage that they bring to the raid, but outside of that, there's not a crazy amount of cleave in this fight. It's really single target based. Destro can get cleave, but these orbs die really fast, and in raid testing, we couldn't even get a full havoc window on them. You see us playing Affliction here. I do think this fight could very, very well be a Demonology fight because this is patchwork, and the longer the fight goes, the more the damage ramps up. When you break more fragments of his armor off, it gets harder and harder and harder to heal the raid and to kill the boss. Demonology brings the best single target profile. If you're going to play Demonic Strength, Calling, Vile Fiend, Grimoire Felguard, Demonic Consumption, not a whole lot really changes there. That is your best de facto single target go-to build for Demonology. You can play Destruction here if you want for some orb cleave. I'd just play Eradication or Flashover, Entropy, Kata, Roaring Blaze, and Dark Soul Instability, the single target build, and you can get cleave on the orbs. If you're going to play Affliction, which might not be a terrible choice here, but it's pretty patty because the orbs don't need to really be burnt down as fast as possible, I would still play the single target build of Drain Soul, Siphon Life, PS, Haunt, and Dark Soul Misery. Overall, I'm going to give the nod here to Destruction. Number 1, because I don't think the fight's gonna be very challenging. You'll probably kill it in a few pulls, barring it being overtuned. But if you need the single target damage, Demonology is actually a real contender here. Even though we're doing good damage as AF right now, it's mostly just orb pad. If you look at boss damage here, we'd probably be behind the Destro lock and quite possibly even the Demo lock. Painsmith Raznal is the 5th boss in Sanctum of Domination, and this is one of my favorite bosses in the raid. It's a fast-paced, hectic, react kind of boss that Destruction is very, very good at. You're going to have a wall of spiked balls that spawns, and you need to target one as a raid and burst it down. You need to then move through the gap, which is where the orb that you killed is, before the people with the chains move through, and get everybody through before you get pushed off the actual platform. This is a great Destruction fight. You'll see them spawning in a second here. Destro can burn these down very quickly. Target one, blast it down with Havoc, and you're good to go. Classes with abilities that can blink through, like Soul Shape or like Door of Shadows, Demonic Circle, can all be used to get through these spiked orbs as well if you like. In the intermission, you have ads that spawn that need to be killed with Rain of Fire or just other abilities you can cast on the move. If you're playing Destro, I think you're playing Flashover, Entropy, Cataclysm, Roaring Blaze, and Dark Soul here with the potential to play Eradication. I don't think Shadowburn is a great option here. Yes, it's more mobility. Yes, you can cleave orbs. I don't think ads are spawning frequently enough to get any relevant value out of Shadowburn. Affliction, I play full single target. Drain Soul, Siphon Life, Phantom Singularity, Shadow's Embrace, and Dark Soul Misery. If I was opting for Demonology, I'd go Strength Calling, Vile Fiend, Grimoire Felguard, and Demonic Consumption. If you don't need damage to burn the orbs down in phase 1, Demonology can also be a contender here. Overall, I'm going to give the nod to Destruction here, but Demonology also has some potential of being played, and as far as mobility is concerned, well, Demo is very good at that compared to what Destro can do in phase 2. Soulrender Dormazain is one of the more interesting bosses in Sanctum of Domination, where you have ads spawning roughly every minute or so after the initial ad wave, but the boss, to me personally, just sort of felt like it was lacking, and I can't really place my finger on what it actually is. And from what I've seen, it's actually sort of a universal feeling for this boss. I'd recommend Destruction here over Demo and AF. I'd probably say Flashover here over Eradication due to the movement, followed by Entropy, maybe Shadowburn, because there's a lot of movement on this fight, and you also have ad spawning, which you can see probably relatively soon here, to get a decent bit of Havoc, Shadowburn, Cleave on. I'd probably start with Entropy, but keep in mind Shadowburn could be a thing here. Cataclysm, Roaring Blaze, or Dark Soul and Dark Soul Instability. While you can get value with Reign of Chaos in the ad phase, I don't really think they're alive long enough, and you don't have Infernal for every single ad wave it spawns. I just think Roaring Blaze, as far as consistency is concerned, it's going to be, well, your best option. If you're looking at playing Affliction, Drain Soul, Siphon Life, Phantom Singularity, Haunt, and Dark Soul Misery. Sow the Seeds, while strong, is not going to be as relevant because the ads spawn basically every minute, and they're only stacked roughly half the time. It's going to be pretty much a single target profile on this fight as far as AF is concerned, but AF is very mobile, so it does have that going for it on this fight. If you're also playing AF here, even though it's most single target based for you, I would play Synergy over Malefic Wrath. There's no way you'd be able to maintain this with high uptime on this fight. If you're looking at playing Demonology, Demonic Strength Calling, Vile Fiend, Grimoire, and Demonic Consumption, you can implode when the ads are stacked whenever they spawn, have a Demonic Strength maybe, or a Fellstorm, but I would not go towards the Dreadlash FTS build in this fight. It is mostly single target based with some brief, heavy priority ad cleave, and then you're back to some odd patchwork movement based fight where Destro can't get a whole lot of utility out of it, but it's still probably the best spec we have in this fight from a Warlock perspective. Guardian of the First Ones is the second patchwork, or I guess pure patchwork boss you will encounter in Sanctum of Domination, and is going to be this tier's Sludge Fist in my opinion. It's a high DPS, high HPS check, and with that being said, I'm going to recommend Demonology on this fight, playing once again the same build of every other fight as Demonology, Demonic Strength Calling, Vile Fiend, Grimoire Felguard, and Demonic Consumption. This fight is going to be, as long as it's tuned properly, a very tight DPS race, and it's pure single target, which means Demonology brings the most to that setting. Now, secondly, if you don't want to play Demonology, you can play Destro. I would play, probably starting off with Eradication here, Entropy, Cataclysm, Roaring Blaze, and Dark Soul Instability. There's no real room for Reign of Chaos here because it's too RNG, and I feel most likely Eradication is going to be the play just because of it being, well, better in basically every setting, and even though it's a little testy right now, no one's really sure how it's going to end up playing out, I think it'll be fine. We played with Eradication previously and it was solid. I don't think we're missing a whole lot here, and playing Cinders makes that a lot better, and it makes Destro even smoother without having Flashover. Either way, if you're looking at playing Affliction, single target, Drain Life, Siphon Life, Phantom Singularity, Haunt, and Dark Soul Misery, this would be a fight where you could play Malefic Wrath over Demonic Synergy, but with there being random movement in this fight, it might be a bit of a headache trying to maintain Malefic Wrath. Either way, it's up to you. This fight's going to be an insane fight if tuned properly. I give the edge to Demonology. Fatescribe Roh-Kalo is the 8th boss you'll encounter in Sanctum of Domination, and this fight is a destruction fight. I'm sorry, but it just is. The timings on Cataclysm with ad spawning are great. The timings on Havoc with the larger tank ad spawning are great. This is just a very, very strong Destro fight, good Reign of Chaos or Reign of Fire value, good Cataclysm value, good Havoc value. It just puts you in a really good spot as far as your damage profile is concerned. The normal build here, I will say Shadowburn does have some relevancy, but I don't think the ads spawn often enough to actually make it a worthwhile choice. Flashover Eradication, Entropy, Cataclysm, Roaring Blaze, and Dark Soul Instability. Even though there are ads stacked from time to time in intermissions, I don't think Random Chaos is worthwhile here. 2 targets, Roaring Blaze, Havoc value, you can't really go wrong. If you're looking at playing Demonology, same thing, single target build, Strength, Calling, Violent Fiend, Grimoire Felguard, and Demonic Consumption. You can get a good bit of Implosion Cleave, as well as a good bit of Strength / Fellstorm Cleave if you time things properly in this fight. But I still think what Destro brings profile-wise is going to be better than whatever Demonology can bring. If you're playing Affliction, Drain Soul, Siphon Life, Phantom Singularity, Haunt, and Dark Soul Misery, you can get pretty good Vial Taint value when the ads are up in Phase 1 and in Phase 2. But I just think with Singularity bringing the pulsing damage, and with it being a relatively heavy movement fight and still single target based, that Phantom Singularity will indeed get the nod here over that. I would personally place Synergy here as well because there's just too much movement. Regardless of the spec you end up playing in this fight, Fatescribe is truly an incredible encounter, and I am really excited to progress on this in a mythic setting. Kel'Thuzad is the penultimate boss of the tier and is quite possibly going to go down as one of the best penultimate bosses in this game's history if done properly. There's a handful of things that Destro can do in this fight. It is a large control-based fight. It might seem like it requires a large damage burst profile. At certain points it does, but that all revolves around controlling when ads die, when you kill certain things. It's slow and steady while also having certain damage profiles, which is great. It's exactly what Destro does, what it does best. If you're starting to play Destro or looking to play in this fight, Flashover or Eradication, I'm sort of feeling Flashover might end up being the play here due to like just the sheer amount of target swapping. It probably is over Eradication, followed by Reverse Entropy or Shadowburn. Now I will say, if Shadowburn is working on this fight, meaning the ads in raid testing, the only ones that gave you a shard back and refunded the Shadowburn cost were the tank ads. Every other ad that died with the Shadowburn buff applied didn't actually die, so you didn't get the refund. Not sure if it's a bug or spaghetti code. I don't know what it is. If they fix it, Shadowburn could be a very, very, very strong option here. If not, you just end up playing Reverse Entropy. Cataclysm, Roaring Blaze, I personally feel is better over Reign of Chaos. However, you can bring a relevant damage profile with Reign of Chaos at certain points in the fight, if need be. Followed by Dark Soul Instability being just the best final option Destro has in that row. Now I will say as well, to a similar extent, if you're looking at playing Affliction, Drain Soul, Writhe in Agony, or Siphon Life, followed by Singularity, Shadow's Embrace or Haunt, and Dark Soul Misery. Just like Shadowburn, if they fix the ads and they all give Wrath of Consumption stacks, the Legendary, this could be an exceptionally strong Affliction dot-based damage fight. There are always ads dying as long as you're not going in the Phylactery. You can maintain Wrath of Consumption basically the whole fight if they fix the fight. This can be a very, very good fight if it's fixed for locks, and even without it, it's still going to be good. But the potential is through the roof if they end up fixing these ads from whatever form they're currently in with the spaghetti code that's being used. If Wrath is working, I would opt more towards playing Writhe in Agony over Siphon Life. If it's not, I go more of the single target based build with Siphon and probably just seed and try and rapture ads down wherever I could, but Writhe would still technically be an option. Shadow's Embrace and or Haunt. Shadow's Embrace has the potential of being stacked and maintained on 2 targets with Drain Soul. Once again, keep in mind the duration is being extended. And if you want to play Haunt for single target, feel free. It's no problem. Followed by Dark Soul. If you're playing Demonology, Demonic Strength, Demonic Calling, Vile Fiend, Grimoire, and Demonic Consumption, yes, there is some relevancy to Dreadlash FTS Cleave here, but I just don't think it's as strong as the 1 minute single target burst profile that Demo with Wilfred's will bring to this fight. Overall, I'm going to give the nod to Destruction, followed by Affliction, and then Demonology. But being real, all 3 specs are contenders on Kel'Thuzad. It could be one of the best penultimate bosses we've ever fought. It just depends if they fix the fight or not. Either way, it's cool. Extremely hectic fight, but a very, very ad control based fight as well. It really doesn't get much better than KT. And finally, we have Sylvanas Windrunner as the final boss in Sanctum of Domination. Now, not a whole lot is known about Phase 3 of Sylvanas, let alone what it looks like on Mythic. Phase 1 is what I would consider a pretty strong Destro phase, playing Flashover, possibly Eradication, but once again, a lot of movement. I will probably give the nod to Flashover in this setting initially and see where it goes, followed by Entropy or Shadowburn. Now, these arrows can indeed, you'll see them spawn in a moment here, can indeed be Shadowburn down. Putting Havoc on Sylvanas, then cleaving them down with Shadowburn means a lot of fast damage really quickly. Multiple Shadowburn, 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 launching bolts you can get a lot of insane damage on these arrows, which also need to die very fast. This could be an exceptionally strong shadow burn fight. Cataclysm, Roaring Blaze, and Dark Soul Instability, I think, are the rest of the talents you'll end up playing here. Even though there are a lot of stacked adds from time to time, I don't think Reign of Chaos is really where you're going to want to be. When you get into phase 2, you have a handful of adds that you can get good Roaring Blaze stacked Havoc value on. But depending on how many adds are there, you might end up using Rain of Fire. Regardless, this is a very strong Destro fight. If you're looking to play Demonology, I'd once again play the single target build: Demonic Strength, Calling, Vile Fiend, Felguard, and Demonic Consumption. There are going to be certain points in this fight where you can get stat cleave value, maybe on arrows or in phase 2 when you're kiting Sylvanas across the bridge, or in phase 3. We don't really know a whole lot about it, but that's where I'd start as far as Demonology is concerned. If you're looking at playing Affliction, I would also probably start with the pure single target build of Drain, Soul Siphon, Singularity, Haunt, and Dark Soul, with potential of playing Writhe and Shadow's Embrace depending on how relevant the adds are. I don't think it's worth having Writhe or SE for any of the arrows in phase 1, but depending on how hard phase 2 and what phase 3 is and how they're actually tuned, that build might end up being a bit more relevant. We have to just wait and see how it is on Heroic and then eventually Mythic. Either way, we only had one testing of Sylvanas on Heroic. They never test final bosses on Mythic. And with a few minor tweaks, this fight could also be really, really good. I wouldn't expect her to go live in the exact form you see here, but similar. With that being said, Sylvanas could be a really good fight. It just depends on, I guess, phase 2 and what phase 3 ends up holding. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope this video gave you all a better understanding and general grasp on just how each boss looks from a Warlock perspective heading into Sanctum of Domination, which releases in technically tomorrow because it's the 5th, which is actually insane. Now, once again, I will indeed be streaming all of my guild's prog on my Twitch. If you want to swing by and watch that, feel free to do so. We raid Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday from 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. Eastern. We'll be going into Mythic, I would assume, the Wednesday that the raid actually opens. Any questions or comments, feel free to drop them down below. I will be sure to get back to you. Any weak wars, profiles, or add-ons you've seen here, you can grab for free off my Twitch. Want to swing by, hang out, once again, feel free to do so. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.